Welcome everyone to week 2 of the Spring 2021 Career Speaker Series. The Career Speaker Series is sponsored by the College of Marin, the Marin County Office of Education, and the Workforce Alliance of the North Bay. The Career Speaker Series will be held from 4 to 5 p.m. on Wednesdays through May 5th. Today's program will cover the topics of mental health, among other things, and real estate. To get us started, I'm going to do a quick round of introductions. My name is Sita Williams, and I work for the Workforce Alliance of the North Bay. Moderating our program today will be Alex Jones from the College of Marin and Erica Green from the Marin County Office of Education. Our presenters today are Teya Hernández, CEO of Reach Your Goals Now, and Teya Walker, real estate agent with Coldwell Banker Best Homes. We will be recording this webinar. So you ask, why offer a career speaker series? Well, we would like to expose you to some of our local professional experts, to introduce you to jobs that you may not have known about before, and to help you to make informed decisions about the next steps in your career path. What to expect today? The presentation hour will include an introduction like we're doing right now, speaker presentations, and question and answer time. Please use the chat function of the webinar to ask your questions. High school students, if you participate in the remaining 9 webinars this spring, there's a possibility that you can earn elective credit for your time. If you're interested, please email me after the program. I'll make sure to put my email address in the chat. For those of you who are co-enrolled in the virtual job shadow program, you'll earn credits through that program, so you don't need to email me. College students, if you're currently taking a work experience course, please ask your counselor if participating in this program could count towards your hours. And for everybody else who's here throughout the program, we will add informational links into the chat for your further career exploration. Webinar registration. If you didn't register for all 10 of the Career Speaker Series webinars, to sign up for another date, simply use the main registration link. And if you have any questions or comments after the program, please email one of the moderators. We'll make sure that our contact information is put into the chat. Thank you so much. And I'd love to start the program by handing the mic over to Teya Hernández.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm gonna just start my screen. Set for, there we go. So I'm Dr. Teya, and you'll see that I have this kind of long title to what this presentation is. Although I am a licensed mental health practitioner in California, Texas, and in Hawaii, my journey has not been about just doing one thing. I'm actually really bad at doing one thing. I can't even watch a movie without like having my computer going and working on work stuff in the background too. So, so the title here kind of encapsulates some of the topics that are about what my career has been about. And you'll see that I have 3 companies that are listed down there: Hernández Family Therapy, Reach Your Goal Now, Got This Inc., and the Be It Foundation. And I am either a director or CEO of each of those organizations. So that's why I'm calling it all at once. So I started as a pre-med student at Berkeley, and I was a double major in psychology and women's studies. I worked at the Space Sciences Lab during that time, and it was a really great opportunity to start to see what are the behind the work scenes of building satellites and things that are going to end up in space. At that time, as a women's studies major, one of my classes required that we do an internship. And I heard on the radio back then that Marin Abused Women's Services was doing trainings to do the hotline, to be on the hotline. So I took the 40-hour training, and for many years, I was on the midnight to 6 a.m. shift for the hotline. So people would call in, and I wanted to see, well, could I handle people's really sad and hard stories? Well, it must have been good enough because I decided to apply for a master's program in counseling psychology. The way I got there was that I was kind of afraid to take the MCATs. And so I thought, well, let me get a master's in counseling psychology first, and then I might apply for med school later. But it turned out I actually really loved counseling psychology. And this is my graduation from Dominican. And some of you may know this tree that's smack in the middle of campus. It's a beautiful tree. During the time when I was a student, I did several internships, but two that stick out are the Child Sexual Abuse Treatment Program, where I started, I led sexual abuse groups in English and in Spanish. And then when I left that internship, I was also doing an internship at Health and Human Services in their Women's Health Services Clinic. So I was the only adolescent counselor in teen clinic, but I also ran teen moms groups and did counseling. And as Eric and I joke around with, like, I actually drove around in a van and dropped off condoms at different places in schools and stuff like that until we were run out of town from time to time. So I did a little bit of everything back then. So this is my early years. Over time, I stayed with Health and Human Services for many, many, many years. And I'll share my career as we go through that. But my first tip in choosing your career is do what makes you happy. It turned out that everything made me happy. And I kind of had my mom in my head saying, bloom where you're planted. Well, I took it a little too seriously. And for a while, I was working 6 jobs for 15 years. And all at the same time. And one of them was a full-time job, and then the rest were part-time gigs. But my most important job was being a mom to, I don't think you can see my arrow here, but to that guy, oopsies, to that guy who's right 1, 2, 3, 4 over from the left. And this was when we started, well, during the recession, many schools had their funding cut for athletics and for other extracurricular programs. So we lost our PE teacher. And so I just started training the kids on running. And then we started this annual ritual that we would have the kids train and run for the Oakland Marathon's 5K. They still do this, and the dad all the way to the right, it continues to coach because he still has kids at the school. And the little one in the front, 8561, was our youngest runner. She's a kindergartner, and now she's, I think, about to graduate if she hasn't already. So during this time, I had already been licensed as a marriage and family therapist in California. It wasn't until much later that I got licensed in the other states. I was also teaching for Jerry Grossman seminars, and I found I really enjoyed teaching. I forgot to put her on here, but I was also teaching at Dominican University and taught there in their counseling psychology department for about 10 years. And I taught community mental health, teaching people how to work with different cultures and communities. And then I also taught law and ethics. For Jerry, I taught many, many courses over about 20 years. I also was working at Kaiser Foundation Research Institute on their institutional review board. So all of the Northern California research went through us. And I actually just quit both of these places just this year. So it's been a long haul with them. But during the time I was working with the county, I was building international programs, building prevention programs, equity and inclusion programs, building the capacity of the community to be able to meet their own needs, and actually doing a lot of things that really made me happy. I was able to work with other countries, other clinics, other counties. It was great. But I also had to remember, and I hope you do, whatever career you choose, remember your inner child and make that inner child happy too. I think it was maybe 2, maybe 3 in this picture. So I started as a commissioner on First 5 Marin when my son was actually 5 years old. This is the Children and Families Commission. I was the longest serving member of that commission for a long time. And then when I left the county and I left the commission, I actually went to go, I am now a commissioner for First 5 Contra Costa. But it also fed my child to not just take care of other children and parents, but also to play and to teach other people how to play and to make health fun. One of the things that was a ton of fun was even doing something like laughter yoga, where we would actually laugh with people and get them to laugh for a minute straight. It's a lot harder than you think. If you're willing to try it now, I'll bring up my app and I'm gonna stop that share. I'll bring up my app and we can do it together. Maybe. Proceed. Oh no, I forgot. I'm not sharing it from my phone. I'm sharing it from my computer. So I'll go back and share the screen again. So I encourage you to just look at either one of us, or if you're around somebody else, look at somebody and just laugh for a minute straight. On your marks, get set, go. Turn on your mics too. Oops, well, the timer went off sooner than that. But how did it feel to laugh even for 15 seconds? I got a thumbs up from Erica.
It was an experience. Yeah.
It's an experience. So it's a little hard, right? Somebody raised their hand over there. Hard. So it was really hard. It felt great. So the goal is to be able to get people back into their body so that they can be present. A lot of times we notice that people actually leave their body and they're floating around someplace in their thoughts. But laughter yoga helps us bring us back to our body. You can actually feel it in your body and you get all of the good juices that come from laughter. Plus it's just fun and it's way better than doing 30 sit-ups or ab exercises. During this time, I was also advocating for people who were more vulnerable, younger children, older adults, LGBT communities, Spanish speakers, our African-American, Black communities, and realistically, any community that needed support around health equity. And luckily, they allowed me to do that as part of my job and created policies around that as well. Throughout my life, in my early childhood and then in my career, I was told I was too much. What I figured out over time was that what that really meant is that people couldn't handle my frequency. Like I did too much, too fast, all at the same time, and it made them feel like there was too much pressure on them. It wasn't what I was intending to do. It was their perception of me was that they had to be doing as much as I did. When actually that isn't true at all. So if any of you have been ever been told that you're too much, just know that that's a really good thing. It just means you have a lot of light and that other people don't really know what to do with your light, but that's okay. Lots of inventors and people at really high places were too much too. And it turned out to be really good for all of us. So I figured out that most people didn't work 6 jobs. And yet for me, it was just what I did. Now, at that time, I had a young child and a lot of the things that I was doing in the community. So I was able to bring him with me and he participated in a lot of the work that I did in community capacity building and much of the work. So it became a very family and oriented career. I got to bring people together from all walks of life and was able to do a lot of that work in many of my different jobs that I had at that time. I happen to be one of those people that's wired to believe that everything is possible. If you can see it, you can do it. And so that's just kind of what I have done throughout my whole career. I'm gonna move past that. I was allowed to do lots and lots and lots of different things when I was at the county. We did reproductive health programs with the College of Marine football team. We did, I was working in juvenile hall. I was known as the sex lady certain places. I was doing policymaking. I was doing all sorts of different things under this one job. I was doing lots of prevention programs. But then I decided, so I had been the only mental health practitioner that worked for the public health department. And after I felt like I had kind of gotten to the level I was going to be able to get with my mental health degree in public health, I decided to go back for my doctorate in healthcare leadership. And so my actual doctorate is in nursing science and healthcare leadership, where I first tested my app to see if it would decrease anxiety and increase positive beliefs in 1 minute of exposure. And it turns out it did. Back then, it was just a simple little bouncing ball that would go back and forth. And now it's a lot more robust, and we're testing it and launching it now. But if you're interested in internships, we are looking for folks that can help us with social media, help us with PR, finding influencers, and all sorts of stuff. So if that's interesting to you, just email me at the end of our presentation. What I found out, though, is that once I was getting close to the end of this doctoral program, I had advocated for myself internally and was not able to get promoted. It was very interesting because at the same time, I was a key player in equity and leadership in that space and helping change the way that the county was treating our workforce, who were people of color and also women. And at that time, what we found out was that our data showed that white women got paid 10% less than white men. Men of color got paid 10% less than white men, but Black and brown women got paid 30% less than white men. And part of that was because we were not given promotional opportunities to advance. So if you stay in the low positions, then those numbers are going to stay low. And I had over 20 women sitting with me in my living room talking with attorneys about how to bring up a suit against the county. But at that time, I was already working on my own negotiation, and I left the county with a small settlement that was directly against me at that time. And so that left me kind of traumatized to really understand that I had not been able to advance for what I believed was due to my skin color and my gender, which very much aligned with what the demographics were of the county. Now, others may not agree that that was the reason, but I don't know, the numbers were talking. What I figured out was that I was traumatized after so many years of fighting for my own position. And when I left the county, I actually started to shut down. So what that means is using the polyvagal theory from our head to our toes, we have the vagus nerve that goes from the back of your head all the way down in branches from your head down to your body, down your body. For those of us who are connected like we are now and to each other and are able to connect easily to our peers and feel safe with the people around us, then we can stay engaged all the time. If you start to feel like you're threatened, then your heart rate starts to go up, your blood starts to go toward your chest, and you start getting ready to fight or to get the heck out of there. If you get tired of fighting and running, and you don't have a support system to come and protect you, what happens is you start to shut down. People get cold hands and feet, you start to feel numb, you stop doing things that used to be exciting or made you happy, and you may feel numb. This is what I experienced, and I started to cry every time I crossed the Bay Bridge. Being in Marin was unsafe for me. Thankfully, it's not like that anymore. I've crawled back from that space, and the gifts of trauma and resilience have really paid off. I mean, I have come through many times, but I use the example of when your pants get too tight, the people around you at your job don't know why you're uncomfortable. You start to get grumpy and feel uncomfortable, but they don't understand what's going on. They just expect you to be the same old CO you've always been. So it's okay to listen to your body and know when enough is enough. and move on. It's okay. You don't have to stay in a career that doesn't fit. So I left and risked my own freedom and started over, but not just in building one thing. I started building 3 things at the same time. So I already had a small private practice at the same time, but I grew it much faster, and I was doing mostly online appointments in my home office where I am now. But I also opened an office in Berkeley, and that was where I really felt like I came home. When I went to Berkeley, I felt like I was normal. Being different was normal as a student, and going back to Berkeley really felt the same way. It's like, oh, it's good to be different here. It did not feel safe for me to be different when I was working in Marin. This is my personal experience. It doesn't have to be the same for everybody. But I started doing a lot of immigration psychological evaluations and still do a lot of them. I actually just finished 2 of them and I have 1 more after I'm done here. I started doing a lot more trauma work with my clients in eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which is my app is built off of, and also lens neurofeedback, where you put sensors on your head and you run a signal that through your brain and says, okay, brain, repeat after me, until people start to feel a little bit better. I also started doing a lot of consultation for diversity to inclusion and other kinds of work that I had been doing before I went out on my own. But as I mentioned earlier, I started working on my app when I was a student. So for the last 9 years of gestation, we've been birthing now this 3rd version of the app. It's now available in the App Store, Google Play, and the web, but it's got some bugs that we're working out right now. So you're welcome to download it, but let me just tell you, sign up through social media, because signing up with your email is really hard to do the 2-factor verification. So we're working on fixing that. But feel free to play with it and send me any feedback. It's free for a week after you download it. I'm also the founding director of my aunt's foundation. She passed away 3 years ago, and her estate decided to open a foundation in her name. So we offer scholarships to students that actually live in South Texas or are studying in South Texas. We have mini grants for folks that have an innovation or some sort of service learning opportunity they want to do. We do emergency assistance, and especially now after the cold weather, we've allocated more resources toward that. And then our biggest campaign is the You Matter campaign, which focuses on mental health stigma reduction. So turns out I was able to rewire fairly quick, and now we're at the point where my toes are on the edge, and I'm totally looking forward to seeing where we're able to take these different things that I'm working on to the next level. So it's not just introductory, it's really about leveling up and seeing what it looks like to be successful. I'm excited because we interviewed our first round of scholarship applicants, and well, we reviewed their applications, and now their interviews are coming up next week. And their students are awesome. I love working with students. I would invest in every single one of them if I could. So that's kind of the wiggly overview of what my career has looked like to date. For the app, most importantly, we believe in you so that you can believe in you. And there are 2 parts of it. One that focuses on how you can either work through a goal that you want to set, like running your first marathon, or getting over some stress, like an upcoming test. That's how I tested it, was in 9th grade students before taking an algebra test, all in one class. Since then, I've used it with all sorts of exams, for bar exams and all sorts of things with my clients, so whatever, or to heal a distressing memory for the past. So you can use it for any of those things. Or there are lots of other kinds of exercises that I have on there that can help maximize your success. So if you want to be one of the app testers, let me know, or you can just download it from the App Store or Google Play, sorry. And it's called Got This. So I kind of sped through that, but I think I have a few minutes.
That was perfect. No, that was great. Thank you. No, and thank you for sharing your journey. I see you still have 6 jobs. That's crazy. That's cool. And thank you. Thanks for sharing the picture too, the pigtails and the dress. That was adorable. Thanks for having the courage to share that. But no, that was great. That was adorable. Question though, I have a question for you. So we have we have students, like some students on the call are like high school students, and they're thinking about, going to college, getting a bachelor's degree, but then master's degree, PhD, that can be intimidating. The students, it was intimidating for me when I was, got my bachelor's degree in psychology, then I got my master's and my EDD, and I just kind of went through the process. What can you give the attendees just a little takeaway, like what you would tell them if they're feeling, intimidated by, those more advanced degrees about that process?
So I have the long answer and the short answer. The shortest answer is don't be scared, because you are doing what feeds you. And so you're not going to do badly if you're investing in yourself. And what I would encourage you to do is, we need students like you to continue with their degrees. And especially if you can help us increase diversity in higher education, that would be great. So if we talk about women in tech, is less than 2% of the entire field, and really much closer to less than 1%. All in total, higher degrees for Latinos is about 11%, and most people stop after community college. So for our African American communities, it's also extremely low. And if you look at psychology, we have only about 4 to 6% that are African American or Black. We have about equivalent amounts or lower for Latinos. And yet the need for our communities of color is huge, but we don't have anybody to send them to. And if you think about other bilingual speaking languages, we just don't have enough. So if you happen to speak another language, great. If you don't, I encourage you to learn. Whatever your interest is, just be hungry for learning and know there is the right program to make you feel full.
Thank you. One more question, because we have a couple of minutes. One of the students, I'm going to bundle this question together for you. What are some of the specific things you do as a CEO? And since the pandemic, how has your job duties, how has that shifted since the pandemic?
So my role is a little different than big time CEOs, because I'm a founding CEO of all these things, right? So I take out the trash and I make sure all the bills are paid and the payroll is run and all of that stuff. So if you were asking Mark Zuckerberg, that would be very different. He probably doesn't take out the trash, but I don't know that. So, for me, I have to do everything to make sure that everything is running smoothly. And one of my friends says, especially being CEO of the app, I'm building the plane at the same time that I'm flying it, because I got to know what works and what doesn't. And it just means that I have to be in control, not in control, but I have to understand all of the moving parts all at the same time. So as a CEO, I think it's really important. I don't know if any of you have ever watched Undercover Boss, but I think it's really important to know what every single role of your organization looks like. And I always said when I worked in the clinics that the janitors and the custodial staff are as important to our clients' health as the clinicians are. So we really need to be mindful of what everybody does and respectful and grateful to everybody as part of a team. You asked about the pandemic. A lot of my stuff has moved online. So I've done much more teaching online. I recorded videos and came up like teaching other people how to do online therapy. So a lot of stuff has moved online. I can't do neurofeedback with the sensors and run it without being in person. So I still go to the office twice a week and hook people up. But other than that, most of my EMDR work is online or through my app now too.
Well, thank you for taking time to talk with everybody. I'm going to check out your app. I was multitasking while you were talking. I was trying to download it, but I just realized I got a new phone, so it wasn't really working. But I'm going to download the app. Thank you again for taking time and sharing your journey with everybody. And if you would like to stay on, I know you mentioned you might have to leave early. Feel free to do what you need to do. But we're going to move to Teya now, and Teya is going to talk to us about real estate. So I'm just going to open it up for you, let you take it away, and it's your floor.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, everyone. It's a privilege and honor to be here, and I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit of my journey with all of you. As mentioned, my name is Teya Walker, and I work at Coldwell Banker Best Homes up here in Port Townsend, Washington. So I'm a little bit out of your area now. When I was working in real estate in the Bay Area, I was working mostly in Marin County at the Green Bay office for Coldwell Banker. And before that, I worked in the Oakland office of Coldwell Banker. So I was down in the Bay Area for quite a while before I came up here. And I had my California license as well as my Washington license. So just to give you a little bit about my journey, both of my parents were in real estate. So I grew up in a real estate family, and my parents had their own office. My dad was a real estate broker and my mom was an agent, and she did all of the advertising, and they worked with the clients together. And I spent a lot of my afternoons after school in the real estate office, and sometimes we went out to dinner or had food in because they were working all the time. So my impression of real estate was like I never wanted to do real estate. Like I'd never wanted to do that because it just looked to me, I mean, they had a phone at home. People were calling, we worked on the weekends. I was in open houses on Saturdays and Sundays. And I just felt like that was not for me. So when I went to college, I studied English literature, and towards the end of my college experience, I thought, okay, what am I going to do with that? Because everybody said to me, well, are you going to teach? Because that was the only thing that people could think of with English, which was interesting. I always got that response. And I decided that I really wanted to go into counseling. And so I moved into getting a counseling certificate, and I worked in a runaway shelter for a while. I worked as a counselor for students in the jail alcohol program who had been incarcerated because of alcohol issues. And so I did a variety of things. And for 28 years, I was an advisor and the director of student advising at a graduate school for psychology and human development and education. And I landed there through a wonderful set of circumstances, but I had a friend that sort of invited me in, and it was a great combination of my skills because I had a lot of detail orientation skills, and I also had a lot of people skills. And so it was a really good match for me for a long time. I had become a mom, and I was a single mom. So at that time, it looked to me like the best thing I could do, hunker down, stabilize, raise my daughter. So it was wonderful. I had this long period of time when I was working a 9-to-5 job, and I had a regular paycheck, and I had medical benefits and all those things. But meanwhile, in the back of my mind was that little thought that I never thought would come up. It's like, I think I'd like to do real estate. And it was an interesting growing interest for me because I felt like I'd always said I never wanted to do that. But as I got older, it started seeming more and more appealing to me to look at having flexibility with my schedule and looking at having more an entrepreneurial energy to what I was doing instead of being driven by others, but for me to actually be the driver of the quality of my work life. So an opportunity came up. I believe we had a big recession. I think that was where it came up, and there was a lot of layoffs at my job. And I thought, this is great. It's like now or never. So that was when I made that big transition into real estate. And I'm so glad that I did. And it was after my daughter had grown up. So I actually felt like there was nobody that I needed to really depend on me. I really had that freedom to sort of launch into that on my own and take that risk, which felt like a really great thing for myself and for my own well-being. So I got my master's degree, however, when I was working at Fielding, and I got my master's degree in human development. And I can talk a little bit about how my counseling background and my coaching background and my master's degree in human development really feeds into my real estate career, but it's helped me tremendously. One of the things I can say to our audience here who are, perhaps thinking about, maybe real estate looks like a really fun and interesting thing to do. And I'm really happy to answer your questions, by the way, if you have questions about real estate and how the whole thing works. I found that a lot of people really don't understand how real estate works. The first time they have an understanding of it is when they decide that they want to go buy their first house, or when they hear about a friend perhaps buying their first house and they have some questions about it. So it's really great if you understand how the whole process of real estate works a little sooner than that. I view it, because of my psychology background, I think, I view home as sanctuary. So for me, it's sacred work to support people in having a home that they love and that they feel like is a safe haven for them. And so I really look at real estate like that. And I balance my work with people that have a lot of means and a lot of ability to purchase whatever kind of home they want, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million homes. And I balance that also with people that are first-time home buyers, that are retiring, and or maybe a spouse has died and they're on a limited income and they're trying to figure out how to protect themselves for their future. And I also work with people that are investing because they want to use real estate as a tool to create passive income for themselves. And I love that, because it's really a great thing to have income coming in without having to work so hard for it. So there's like ways, and to provide a home for other people who need it and who aren't quite ready to buy their own homes. So there's one of the things I want to talk about in terms of real estate and how the field works. There's a lot of things in the media about realtors and real estate. Like if you watch movies and you see a realtor, most of the times they look like slimy characters. It's really, like, I really noticed over the years that there's a lot of ways that realtors are represented isn't exactly attractive. And the reality of it is, and I didn't know this until I got deeply into it, the reality of it is that real estate is a helping profession. And it's really, some people come at it from a background in contracting, some people come at it with a background in accounting. But for me, the background that I have of being a people person and understanding what people's needs are, the reality of real estate is that it's always, it's almost always happening because of some kind of transition. People are getting married. People have gotten a better job. People have decided to move to a different job in a different city. People are getting a divorce. Someone has died, and those transitions have a lot of emotion attached to it. There's it's sacred work to be involved with people during these big transitions of their lives and to help them figure out what's next. Sometimes they're really scared. Sometimes it's it's a difficult time in their, sometimes it's the most exciting thing in the world, any number of things, but there's often a lot of emotion attached to it. And so my job is also to help de-escalate emotion at times and help people negotiate for what it is that they want to have happen so that it can be a win-win. And that's the way I work in real estate. Not everyone works that way, but that's how I work. And one of the things that I've found over time is that the clients that resonate with me are my best clients. And there are clients for everyone. So there are different kinds of realtors with different kinds of backgrounds and different styles. And it's a really great idea to find somebody that's a good match for you as a client and that you feel comfortable working with. I know that it was my impression from watching my parents and also from watching realtors in the movies that there was a certain way to be a realtor. And that was fascinating for me because it's just not true. The best way to be a realtor is to be yourself, to be as authentic as you can be, to be as transparent as you can be, and to be as helpful as you can be to other people. So it's turned out to be a really joyful and much more joyful experience even than I ever thought it would be. It looked like perhaps another means to an end, and it's turned out to be really fulfilling. So that's been a great thing. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the negatives of getting into the business, because I feel like, you know, we have kind of a younger audience here that may be looking at like what career, you know, to start with, you know, et cetera. Real estate can be really tough when you initially get into it. You are basically funding your own business. It wouldn't be any less expensive to, you know, start a restaurant business, which might cost $100,000 or $200,000. You might get a business loan to start that venture. But people think that you're just going to walk into real estate and immediately make money. And it's not like that. There is a certain amount of buildup that has to happen. You know, first of all, you're learning a lot. And then once you're, you know, you get to a point that you learn enough and you get your license and you can actually be a realtor, you have to build your clientele that are working with you. And so people that have been in the business for 20 years, they have a huge, what we call is the sphere of influence. But in the beginning, when you're starting out, you're just beginning to build those people and build those relationships, and people need to trust you and believe in you. Unfortunately, I would say that there's a certain amount of ageism that exists in real estate, and it's reverse ageism. They want realtors that have a certain amount of life knowledge for them to feel safe. So a lot of clients struggle with working with young agents. And so coaching a person who's younger and wants to get into real estate, I would say it's really important to build confidence inside yourself and whatever that takes to do that. And when you create the relationship with your client, you're making promises that you're going to keep. So when you say to a client, I don't know, but I'll get back to you, I'll find out, that's going to carry a lot if you actually do find out and you do get back to them. And then they don't mind that you don't necessarily know the answer, because the truth is that most realtors couldn't possibly know all that there is to know in our field. There are legal issues. There are legal issues not just for the profession that involve ethics and that kind of thing, but there's also city ordinances and county ordinances and state ordinances, and everything impacts everything else, and they can all be different. When I was working in Marin County, it was just amazing to me how different it could be just crossing the border from San Anselmo to Fairfax to Corte Madera, what the kind of rules were for, you know, septic, or for, you know, different kinds of things that were going on, you know, sewer inspections, all those things. So there's sort of no end to the amount of education that you're going to be able to avail yourself to when you're a realtor. And it's really okay to also know that you don't know everything, as long as you know where the boundaries are around that. I really am proud of the fact that realtors go through a code of ethics training every couple of years, and that we're, you know, committed to equity and fair housing, that's just part of who we are as professionals. There are ongoing classes always for realtors, and it's a really another track of what I would call, you know, lifelong learning for people to get involved in the real estate profession. It can also be really crazy. If you're not good at multitasking, this profession is not for you. But if you really like having lots of balls in the air, and you might be managing one house that's for sale that you're listing, and another 5 buyers that you're handling that are finding houses that they want to look at, plus doing your marketing, plus working, you know, it's constantly like, you know, lots of fingers and lots of things in the air. You will have interruptions at your dinner appointment sometimes. I was up at 3 in the morning on my birthday one time writing an offer, because if I didn't write that offer for that client was going to miss out on that property, and it was really important to them. So, but the rewards are huge. Like when you see the look on someone's face when it works and they get it and they get their keys and they get to move in and it's their dream come true, it's absolutely, it makes up for everything. I love it. But that kind of flexibility, you know, you get the freedom, but you also have to provide the flexibility. What else do I want to say? Some people, like I said, come to this profession with a variety of backgrounds. You know, all things can be useful if you think about it in that way, but having a background in construction, having a background in accounting, or banking, communication, English, just being able to speak well, having a background in insurance, there's lots of different kinds of things. You can also come in just wanting to be a realtor. It can be done. But if you were going to do that, I would definitely recommend that you study to get your license and identify a person that you want to work with and be their assistant for a year or two. You can do a lot as an assistant and get a regular salary from that realtor and learn everything you can from that person about how they market and how to do the job. And if you can't do that for some reason, or you don't want to do that, you may need to supplement your real estate business with a part-time position doing something else while you're on the way to being successful. So even when I started in real estate and I had a big background, I didn't have that base of knowledge in real estate yet that I needed, and I wasn't working as an assistant. And so I worked part-time for Marin schools, and I did tobacco use prevention education, and I had some mentors helping me in real estate. I was mentoring them in real estate. So I did some little things to supplement my real estate work so that I could feel like I could not have too much time taken away from real estate, but I was, building a salary underneath myself. So that really helped me in the beginning. And for young people, I think it's really helpful to have a mentor or somebody to kind of guide you along the way. And then the other thing is to work in an office that has really good training and really good support. So I started out in the office in Oakland, and then I moved to Coldwell Banker in Marin because it was the largest office in the area. It had 120 agents, and you would think that that would be intimidating. I originally thought, oh, I'm going to want to work in a little sweet, comfy office. Well, that's not where the action's going to be. So working in a huge office with training and resources available to everyone constantly was really, really helpful to me. We literally had classes available every day, and you can pick and choose what you want to do. And then you have other agents that are right there that you can ask, and everybody's really active, and pretty soon somebody's giving you too much, the work that they can't handle because they're too busy, and, things just start to fly. So that was really helpful to me too, to just kind of launch into this really huge work environment and to put myself there. I had to create my own schedule because nobody's going to tell me how much or how little to work. And so the only thing that worked for me was to take a walk with my dog in the morning because I had to make sure to get that walk in. Life balance is important. And then I would go to the office and I would spend my time there, and I would sort of figure out from there if I was going to do a little marketing that day or go on tours or do other things. But that became my base. And that way I always had that grounding of work and being in that environment where everybody's doing work. Because I've found during COVID, I've been working the whole time during COVID. We don't stop. People still need to buy houses and sell houses and need places to live. But we're working more from home, and we're all Zooming and trying to keep, in contact with each other and support each other during this time, but it's harder. We miss that, that sort of energy and the synergy that comes from being together. So it does really help to be in a strong environment where people are really active and doing a lot of work. And the work will overflow to you too, which is a great way for you to start.
Okay, I was going to ask you while you were on the topic of COVID, what's the industry looking like now? I know you were saying you guys are working more remote, everybody's working by Zoom. Is the housing market or the realtors, how's it selling? What's it look like now? Just as a student's thinking.
Yeah, in our area, last year was the best year that I've ever had in real estate. So, and I've talked to a couple of realtors that said the same thing. The most difficult thing that's going on right now in real estate is that there isn't enough existing housing for what people want. So it's really a seller's market right now, and a lot of competition. I know that's true in the Bay Area. I know it's true up here. So a lot of competition, properties going over asking, 5 or 6 offers for every one house. I'll usually have 6 to 10 clients interested in the one particular house. There's so many more buyers than sellers. There's a lot of people right now moving out of the cities and looking for a more rural lifestyle. What's happened with COVID now that people have the opportunity to Zoom is that they're realizing that they don't have to live in the city anymore. And it's a lot less expensive not to. So people are looking at other alternatives. I happen to live in a really sweet rural community that's 2 hours outside of Seattle. And so still go down to the ferry and go over to Seattle if they need to, but it's a lot less expensive. Seattle has gotten to be a lot like San Francisco. The prices have gone way up there. So our area has gone crazy. We went up 21% in 1 year.
Okay.
Last year was a really, really big year. And the interest rates are low right now for borrowers. And so, you know, you can get a lot more for your money right now when the interest rates are low. So it's kind of an exciting time. It's a lot happening, is what I could say. And we're all wearing our masks, and we all have to wipe everything down, and we can only have a certain number of people in a house at a time, and we can't drive with them in the cars. I used to love taking my clients with me in the car and explain to them about the neighborhoods and talk to them about, you know, their different choices. And I can't do that right now. We have to do it all, you know, like I'll be on the phone with them while we're driving in separate cars, that kind of thing. So.
And I have another question in the box. Thank you for answering that one. What's the average income for maybe like a top producer?
Well, I have a friend in the East Bay in Oakland that's making over $1 million a year right now, clearing over $1 million a year. Yeah. And for all of you listening, you don't start, it doesn't work like that when you start. So an average realtor in the United States, it's around 70 or 80,000 a year, but it's a decent income. And you get a lot of write-offs. If you're good at keeping your documents and your records, you have a lot of things that you don't get taxed on. So when you take a client out to lunch, or you drive them around in your car, or you know you travel for an educational event, like all those things are tax write-offs. And so so there's a lot of flexibility in terms of what your actual income is and what your expendable, you know, income is.
And just for the attendees, I put information about College Man has real estate courses that students can take that'll help them get the real estate license. How many classes did you have to take? Did you end up taking like 3 classes to sit for the real estate exam, or?
The California license is the Rolls Royce of real estate licenses in the United States. Once you get California, everything else is easy. So California is a little bit more stringent, and it tends to be that Northern California and Southern California work a little bit differently in terms of the kinds of forms that they use and the kinds of regulations that they follow. But I took classes online through REVI, REVEI, and there are several real estate courses that you can take, but that one was recommended to me, and I really liked it. I thought it was great. And they give you practice tests so that you can prepare for your real estate license. And, you know, you need to go take your license and hopefully pass it the first time. Not everybody does. Sometimes you have to repeat it. So in terms of cost, just to kind of break that down, you're going to be paying for studying for your real estate license. You can take your real estate license without taking one of those courses, but I think it would be very difficult to pass. So you take a real estate course, and then you pay for your licensing and you get licensed, and then you're going to be paying brokerage fees to whatever broker you work with that you hang your license to. You're paying a certain amount of money per year to be connected to that brokerage and have the legal protections that they provide, because you're an agent working under a brokerage. And then you're also going to be paying for your county membership, like Marin Association of Realtors, for example, and then your California Association of Realtors, and then your National Association of Realtors. And so there's fees for those every year. And then, you know, when you list a house for sale, you're paying for the photographer, the staging, the marketing materials, everything that's getting mailed out, or booklets that are being made, or flyers, all those kinds of things. And then when you sell the house, the brokerage gets a percentage of your commission, and you get part of the, you know, so you have to plan a lot around your finances and have some money in reserve to cover some of those things. With that said, everything's negotiable in real estate, which is part of the reason why the negotiation skills are so important. You can negotiate with your clients about what your commission is going to be when you're listing a property, or even when you're providing services to them as a buyer. And you can sometimes, in my case in Washington, you can't, but in California, you can negotiate a little bit around what your brokerage fee is. Usually when a young agent starts out, the brokerage gets 50%. And later on, when you're a really good agent and you're really successful, that percentage, goes up in your favor. So my friend that's doing so well, she's getting 95%. So for me, I have a little equity issue with that. Honestly, it's really unfortunate that the ones that need the help to get started the most are the ones that are getting the lowest percentage. That's the way it works. You have to prove yourself before you'll get a higher percentage. So it's all in how hard you work and how much you work to what your results are going to be.
Yeah, thank you. That was actually one of the questions that students had about how it all actually works. So thank you for sharing that. And but if a student is interested in, they want to get into this, they want to start out, they're thinking like this might be a fit for them. What's some advice? What would be some advice with your years experience that you could give them?
Well, ideally, if it's even before they're getting licensed, if they're just kind of curious to be sort of around the environment, doing an internship with someone in a real estate office. Most realtors need help. I had a mentee when I was in the Greenbright office, and she was wonderful for me. She did, labels on envelopes for mailings that I had to do, organized packages for me of gifts that I was bringing to my clients. And then I took her to open houses and showed her, all the different design features and what were the kinds of questions that I would need to ask if I was presenting this house to a client and that kind of thing. So, so it was a win-win for both of us. She helped me with some of my tasks and she got to be in the environment. We even talked a little bit about professional presentation and how you need to look to be successful in the profession. That's a really good way to start, is with some kind of mentorship or internship.
Thank you. One more question. What would you recommend to someone? Well, I said for internships, I know you can definitely reach out to me. We do have some companies, some realtors that are looking for like interns to kind of support them. So I'll put my information in the box. What would you recommend to someone who wants to invest in real estate later in life as passive income?
Well, from my personal experience and also the way that I would guide, my clients. I have a certain kind of formula that works for me, and everybody can decide or tweak, what the best formula is for them. For me, a college town or university town is a great area to invest in because people need to come there to go to school and faculty need to come there as well. And sometimes people aren't permanent in the area. You might have visiting faculty for a year. You're going to have students that are coming and going. So those are good, rental communities. It's really good to look at a community where there's a shortage of rentals so that it's easy to find good tenants. And you want to make sure that your formula, what you're basically paying for the property and what your monthly amount is going to cash flow for you when you have all your other expenses considered. So you have to think taxes and then all of the improvements that might need to be made, on the house over time. And you want to make sure that the rental amount for that area is going to cover all those expenses and give you a positive cash flow. So, I have a couple of rental properties up here now in Port Townsend, and it's a great, win-win because we have a real shortage of long-term rentals. What's happened in this area is that it's so beautiful that people are doing a lot of the vacation rentals. And so then you end up with people who live here and work in the community and can't find places to live because they've all turned into vacation rentals. So, regular long-term tenants, for me, feels like a good thing to support the community. And then it also supports me. So.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with everybody. We definitely appreciate it. So thank you.
My privilege. It was really fun.
And Sita, I'll let you close us off. Yeah. Thank you again, Teya.
Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for participating in this webinar. Thank you, Teya, for talking to us about real estate and CO, even though she just had to sign off for her next meeting. We understand that, you know, it's you guys, you are very busy and you're taking your time to share your experience with us. And we are so very appreciative. And it's people like you, and I say this, you know, almost every time, but it's people like you who make us, you know, the educators and the workforce development folks. I'm so very grateful and happy to have the jobs that we have, that you can come and join us for this time. So thank you. Thank you so much. And everyone, I will stay on the line for a while and otherwise to answer any questions, but otherwise, thank you so much and have a good week.
Bye.
Bye, Teya.
All right, thank you.